The PlayStation Store had a big in Japan sale recently where tons of Japanese games were heavily discounted, and I put a decent amount of things in my wish list for later when I had more time since Elden Ring had just come out, but I still put one thing in my cart immediately for $10. That thing was World End Syndrome, a visual novel, part dating sim, part thriller, and just all around good looking. The trailer intrigued me, the character art was gorgeous, not just from a waifu perspective, but all the characters were drawn terrifically and immediately seemed like they'd be worth getting to know the story around. I'm a guy who likes the popular VNs everyone likes, Danganronpa, Ace Attorney, Doki Doki Literature Club, but I've always felt I should get more into the genre, and so I finally took a decent plunge on something I'd never heard of. World End Syndrome came out in 2019, so this is a very late review, but a sequel is in the works from what I read and could be announced any time, so let's talk about the game spoiler-free. World End Syndrome takes place in a quiet Japanese town with a historic local legend regarding the Yomibito, souls who come back from the dead as their nearly indistinguishable former selves and go on killing sprees. It is almost the 100th anniversary of the first and only Yomibito catastrophe, and it's a central theme of the game, whether they'll come back again this summer or whether they ever existed at all. Your character is a depressed high schooler who moves to this town to die the slow death of existence, but he joins a mystery club with a few other students dedicated to the Yomibito legend, run by a teacher who wrote a famous best-selling YA novel about it. After the prologue, which runs about an hour, the dating sim aspect begins, in which you choose locations to go, morning, afternoon, and night, day after day, trying to find character hangouts and witnessing story beats tied to individual characters. World End Syndrome functions differently than other dating sims I've played or heard of, though, in that each girl has her own route that takes up a whole playthrough, and you have to complete them in a certain order before others can unlock. Something I wish the game actually told me, because in the first route I was out here trying to play the field and see who I'd be most into, but the game was like muttering under its breath, you're supposed to be looking for Saya and only Saya, and as a result I missed a key scene with her because I didn't know I was supposed to be riding her path so hard. But the routes are set up this way because every route advances the main story further. Even though each playthrough your character starts over from the beginning of the calendar month, the story is set up so that the new girl you're romancing will uncover new narrative beats that piece together the entire thing. It's a cool way of doing things in theory, but that also means you're beating this game 5 times if you want to actually see the ending, plus the true ending that unlocks after that, and you're forced to do the full routes of girls you might not be interested in. As with most VNs that have multiple endings, already seen text is skippable and also highlighted yellow for visual confirmation, so I wasn't worried about missing anything important. A full route probably takes around 2 hours if you read fast, though the first route will be longer with no skip text. If you're going to play this game, there is a certain way to do it. It's called look up a guide to where every character is at every time of day, and whichever girl's route you're on, just stalk the shit out of them. Go where they are every single time without fail, or you will miss things. If you play this game without a guide, there is simply no point to doing so at all. You'll just get fragments of a developing relationship and maybe even a bad ending if you mess up terribly, so keep a guide open. I won't pull any punches when I say this is a horrendous way to experience a visual novel and by extension to have designed a visual novel, tedium incarnate, especially when repeating basic group hangouts or visiting locations where nothing interesting happens. It straight up sucks having to replay this game 4 times like that when the day-to-day outside of big narrative events is so exhaustingly boring, but you'll be glad you did because the payoff is enormous. If you're looking for a great story, it's here. It takes way too long to experience, but after the end of Saya's route, the first route, and after I looked up how the hell the rest of the game worked, I knew I was invested enough to see it through. Most of the characters are great, the intrigue is top-notch, and the true ending is worth every second of boredom to get there. Still no spoilers, but damn. Not every route is created equal. Saya's is good, but still introductory. Hanako's is second and pretty solidly emotional. Maimi's is the third one and almost entirely pointless in the grand scheme of things. Yukino's is fourth and terrific at tying up some of the mysteries, and last but not least, Miyu's is pure intrigue and contains very important revelations. All of them have to be completed to see the true ending, which is a perfect tear-jerking send-off to the game. The waifu aspect honestly doesn't even matter since you have to do them all anyway. Plus all of them are of relatively equal quality, except Maimi, whose route is just not it, and also fun fact, she's your cousin. That's not a spoiler either, you're both well aware of this from the get-go. I was just hooked on the story, the girls were just a gateway to a more juicy narrative. I think I covered all the necessary stuff, so let's get to the game graph, which is going to have special categories made specifically for this kind of game. Where I usually go story, graphics, mechanics, and fun, this time for a visual novel dating sim, I'm going story, gameplay, and waifus. As I mentioned, the story is the strongest part of World End Syndrome. It's genuinely interesting and will keep you guessing all the way to the true ending. I'm super glad I stuck through it and finished it out. I'm giving the story a 95, only because it's a bit slow to get into from the prologue. Gameplay is where I'm not afraid to give a lousy score. It is so goddamn annoying just being like, oh, it's the morning of August 3rd, that's when Mimey hangs out at the school. I'm gonna click that location, watch 2 lines of dialogue, and then go find where she is in the afternoon and evening before the next day rolls around, and I do the same shit again for an entire month praying for some real events. Characters also have individual auras of different colors that show up when you encounter them, and in order to even unlock Mimey's route, you have to get a red aura from her at a random encounter 15 times, which is plainly not going to happen by accident, unless you save scum and do the same encounter over and over again. So the game really gatekeeps its narrative behind some BS you have to work around. Mechanics get a 10, I don't care. That's out of 100, by the way, in case you're only half paying attention. And finally, waifus. This game has 5 main waifus with their own routes, but there are also a couple side chicks who are important to the story but aren't available. Honestly, everyone is good. I talk shit about Mimey because her route is lame, but as a character she's fine. Everyone has personality, everyone has depth, everyone is drawn to the nines. This might be the most solid cast of ladies I've seen in a game as far as not having any duds goes. I didn't love any of them, but I liked all of them. Also, this game doesn't get any lewder than swimsuits and a panty shot if you're looking for that information. I'm giving waifus a 90. And that brings us to our final score, which doesn't just average the previous scores together. Some things are weighted differently, and we think about the game overall as an experience. I'm giving World End Syndrome an 85. The story and ladies are doing their damnedest to carry some awful gameplay. This would be a 10 out of 10 anime if they found a way to merge all the routes together, but as a game, the game aspect is really holding it back, which sucks because I really enjoy it and wish I could score it better. But that's gonna do it for this game graph. Remember to use a guide if you decide to pick this up off my recommendation. Follow me on Twitter at Sunburned Albino, watch all my videos in Japanese with English subtitles, and I'll see you guys next time.